You can leave the badge on the desk, Celeste Arden said. Maddox Vale stood beside the wet lobby floor with a mop in one hand and his daughter's school bag in the other. The leak is still active, he said. I fired you. I heard you. Then why are you still standing there? Maddox looked toward the elevator, where a little girl in a cream coat had stopped moving. Celeste's daughter stared at him. For 8 months, Livia Arden had not spoken to anyone. Then she ran. Celeste reached for her. Livia, no. But the child threw both arms around the janitor's waist and buried her face in his shirt. Maddox dropped the mop before it could touch her. Hey, little lighthouse, he whispered. Celeste went still. How do you know that name? Before we continue, tell us in the comments. Where are you watching from? Celeste Arden was 27 and already tired of people calling her fearless. Fearless sounded elegant in interviews. In real life, it meant she had become skilled at walking into rooms where older men waited for her to fail. She ran Arden House, a luxury residential tower and private office club her father had left half-finished before his sudden death. The building had marble floors, brass elevator doors, and a waiting list full of people who liked privacy more than kindness. Celeste protected it with rules because rules were easier than trust. That morning, a rainstorm pushed water through a ceiling seam above the main lobby. Staff moved around buckets and towels while investors arrived for a tour. Maddox Vale, the night janitor, had stayed 3 hours past his shift to keep the floor safe. He was 32, broad-shouldered and steady, with dark blonde hair, rough hands, and the calm face of a man who had learned not to waste panic. His uniform shirt had a bleach mark near the pocket. His daughter Tessa's purple school bag hung from his shoulder because her sitter had canceled at dawn. Celeste saw the child first. Tessa was 7, sitting quietly near the service desk with a picture book and a paper cup of milk. She was doing nothing wrong. But Celeste was leading investors through a lobby that was supposed to look perfect, and perfection had no room for a janitor's daughter. Why is there a child in my lobby? Celeste asked. Maddox turned from the leaking seam. School starts in 40 minutes. She is waiting with me. This is not a waiting room. Tessa lowered her eyes. Maddox's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. The floor is slick near the east elevator. Please keep them to the dry side. Celeste hated that he was right. She hated more that he said it in front of the investors. Your shift ended at 6. The leak did not. One of the investors smiled, as if the line amused him. Celeste felt control slipping in a room where control was all she had left. Return your badge, she said. Effective now. The lobby quieted. Maddox looked at Tessa, then at the wet marble between the elevator and the tour path. I will leave after I mark the hazard. You will leave now. That was when the private elevator opened. Livia Arden stepped out with her nanny, small and pale in a cream coat, one hand wrapped around the stuffed white rabbit she carried everywhere. 6 years old, silent since the night a service elevator stalled during a blackout and her grandfather died 2 weeks later. Doctors called it selective mutism. Celeste called it the wall she could not climb. Livia saw Maddox and froze. Maddox saw her too. All the color left his face. Then Livia ran across the lobby, straight through the careful space Celeste had built around her, and into the arms of the man Celeste had just fired. Nobody moved for 3 full seconds. Celeste had seen her daughter resist therapists, doctors, grandparents, teachers, even her own mother on bad days. Livia did not run into arms. She measured people from a distance and kept her words hidden somewhere no one could reach. But she held Maddox Vale like she had found a door in a wall. Maddox crouched carefully, so Tessa's school bag slid from his shoulder to the floor. He did not grab Livia back. He made himself small enough for the child to choose him. You are taller, he said softly. Livia nodded against his shirt. Celeste walked toward them with her hands half raised. Tell me how you know my daughter. Maddox looked up. Not here. You do not decide that. Livia's fingers tightened in his uniform. Tessa left her chair and stood beside her father, confused but protective. Dad. The word hit Celeste in a place she did not expect. Dad. Of course he was a father. She had seen the school bag and still made him feel like an inconvenience. The investors were staring. The lobby staff were pretending not to. The leak continued to tap into the bucket, loud in the silence. Celeste forced her voice lower. My office. Maddox stood slowly. Livia kept hold of his sleeve all the way to the elevator. Upstairs, Celeste's office looked out over the city in gray rain. Livia sat beside Maddox on the sofa. Tessa sat at the far end, clutching her book. Celeste remained standing because sitting felt like surrender. Start, she said. Maddox folded his hands. 8 months ago, during the blackout, I was not working here. I was driving rideshare after my wife died. I picked up a night job wherever I could. That night, I was outside Arden House waiting for a fare when the emergency lights failed. Celeste stopped breathing for a beat. The official report said a contract technician had opened the elevator doors after 22 minutes. It said Livia had been found crying, but unharmed. It never mentioned Maddox. I heard her before anyone else did, Maddox continued. She was tapping the inside panel. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Livia lifted her hand from his sleeve and tapped the sofa. 3 times. Pause. 3 times. Celeste's eyes filled before she could stop them. I told her to keep tapping, Maddox said. I told her my daughter was afraid of dark hallways, too. I call her Little Lighthouse because she kept answering me. Livia looked at him. Then, in a voice small from disuse, she whispered, "You sang." Celeste covered her mouth. Maddox's face broke for half a second. I did. Tessa stared at Livia with wide eyes. You talked. Livia leaned closer to Maddox. You said don't sleep. I said stay with me. Celeste sat down because her knees did not trust her anymore. Why were you not in the report? She asked. Maddox looked toward the window. Your security director told me the family wanted privacy. He said if I signed a witness note, I would be contacted later. No one called. Celeste knew the director. She had fired him 2 months earlier for hiding maintenance failures to protect the building's valuation. The room shifted around her. Maddox had not come to Arden House for pity. He had taken the janitor job under the same roof where he once sat on cold marble, talking her daughter through the dark. Why work here? Celeste asked. He glanced at Tessa. Benefits. Better hours. A chance to stop driving nights. There was no accusation in it. That made it worse. Livia reached for the stuffed rabbit and placed it in Maddox's lap. For the first time in 8 months, she spoke a full sentence. He stayed when the lights went away. Celeste did not become softer all at once. People did not change that honestly. But something in her certainty cracked, and through it came shame. She looked at Maddox, then at Tessa, then at the service badge still clipped to his shirt. I fired the man who saved my daughter, she said. Maddox shook his head. I did not save her alone. The fire crew opened the car. You kept her awake. He did not deny that. Celeste stood and walked to her desk. Her hands were steady now, but only because she had chosen one thing she could do. She called building records and asked for every file from the blackout night. Then she called legal. Then she called the former security director's assistant, who still owed her the truth. By noon, the story was no longer a memory. It was a chain of deleted notes and signed witness forms and a maintenance warning buried to protect a financing meeting. The emergency battery for the service elevators had failed inspection twice before Livia was trapped. Maddox had reported the dark stairwell that night. His report had been removed. Celeste read the line twice and felt sick. The investor tour was still waiting downstairs. For once, she did not care what the lobby looked like. She brought Maddox, Tessa, Livia, and the records down with her. The investors stood near the marble desk, impatient and dry under expensive coats. The bucket beneath the leak was half full. One of them frowned at Maddox. Is there a reason the janitor is in this meeting? Celeste looked at the man and heard herself from an hour earlier. Yes, she said. He is the reason my daughter survived a failure this building tried to hide. No one clapped. No one gasped. The room simply became honest. Celeste announced an independent safety audit, delayed the investor presentation, and suspended every manager tied to the buried reports. She did not make Maddox stand like a trophy. She did not ask Livia to perform her new voice for strangers. She only told the truth and let the truth do what it had been waiting to do. Bennett Whale, the lead investor, warned her that delays were expensive. Celeste answered, "So is a building that teaches children not to trust the dark." Maddox looked at her then, not warmly, not yet, but differently. That afternoon, Tessa and Livia sat together near the service desk while rain softened against the glass. Tessa showed Livia how to fold a paper boat from an old inspection memo. Livia did not speak much, but she smiled once. For Celeste, it felt like sunrise had learned to be quiet. Maddox came out of the locker room in his own jacket, badge in his hand. Celeste met him by the elevators. "I cannot ask you to stay after how I treated you." "No," he said. "You cannot." She accepted that. "But I can offer you the facility's safety supervisor role. Not because of Livia, because you saw what everyone else walked past." Maddox looked at the lobby floor, the taped hazard line, the bucket, the people moving around it more carefully now. "I need hours that let me pick up Tessa from school. Then those are the hours. And I do not want my daughter hidden in a break room like a problem." Celeste glanced at Tessa, who was helping Livia balance a paper boat on the edge of the bucket. "Neither do I." Weeks later, Arden House looked less perfect and worked better. Emergency lights were tested in front of staff. Elevator batteries were replaced. A small children's table appeared near the service desk, not for show, but because real lives did not pause at lobby doors. Livia still had quiet days, but sometimes she found Maddox by the elevators and tapped 3 times on the brass panel. He always tapped back. One evening, Celeste walked into the lobby and saw Maddox teaching both girls how to check whether a floor sign was placed far enough from a spill. "Safety inspectors now?" she asked. Tessa nodded seriously. "We are expensive." Livia looked up and whispered, "Worth it." Celeste laughed before she could stop herself. Maddox looked at her, surprised by the sound. The moment was small, and maybe that was why it felt real. Outside, rain moved down the glass. Inside, the light stayed on.